Sandeep, overnight developments, a lot of developments. The entire world now is in an uncharted territory. We do not know what will happen now onwards, what will be the nature of retaliation coming in from Iran. They are saying that there would be high risk zone. That is what we are looking at now. So, Sandeep, what happens now onwards? Assembly of experts to pick new leader from clerics and IRGC insiders. But several IRGC leaders, the second-rung leadership, their key figures have been targeted as well.
This is a scenario that Iran has prepared for several months now, and they knew exactly what was coming their way. And in fact, there were reports which said that Ayatollah Khomeini had asked the Iranian administration to prepare for precisely these kind of decapitation strikes, which is airstrikes that would kill, assassinate key regime figures in the hope that the government would collapse. So his idea, his instructions to all governments right down to the provincial level was to have 3 and 4 layers of replacements for each person that is killed. And that is something that they've seen with Hezbollah as well. This is exactly how Israel has taken out Hezbollah, but of course Iran is much, much bigger, and this is the strategy that they've been putting into place. So the priority, of course, for Iran now would be to find a replacement for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. We don't know who it could be. It's either his son, it could be Ayatollah Khomeini's grandson has been spoken about. That would be the priority because Iran is, of course, an Islamic theocracy. It needs a supreme leader to give it directions. And Ayatollah Khamenei has been one of the longest served leaders, not just in Iran, but in West Asia. More than 3 decades he's ruled Iran. He has actually seen the setting up of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Council, one of the most important organizations in Iran. In fact, the most important organization in Iran today, which controls all aspects of power, including the military. It has a parallel military of its own. It controls the ballistic missiles. The attacks that you're seeing across West Asia today on Dubai and other places, they are actually being controlled by the IRGC. So there is a theory that the IRGC could now, in fact, take over the country as a kind of a military rule in the interim before Iran can elect a supreme leader of its own. But this, again, there is no surprise here. There is no out of the blue kind of thing. While the death of Ayatollah Khamenei is a shock to many, this is a scenario that Iran would have prepared for the last couple of weeks. They knew exactly what is to be done, because if they don't, replace the leaders, it could actually see deep instability. It could lead to civil unrest and the hopes of the United States and Israel that there would be public protests, exactly the way we saw in 1979 when the Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, had to flee in January of 1979. That is 47 years ago. He fled after almost a year of protests, unrest, civil unrest, all of that. He had to run away in January, and that is when Imam Khomeini returned from France and he took over Iran, and he announced the Islamic theocracy of it that rules Iran today on the 1st of April 1979. So Iran is at a 1979 moment, you can call it that. That is, of course, the hope of the United States and Israel, to see that they could effect a regime change from the air by carrying on multiple assassinations of key regime figures across the country, to hope that there is instability, there is civil unrest, and people then choose a new leader. The hope of the regime is, of course, the priority of the regime from day one, from 1979, has been regime survival. And that's the reason that they have set up all of this, multiple networks. The IRGC is so strong precisely to protect the regime from its external foes, like the United States, Israel, that are currently attacking them. The axis of resistance is also to protect Iran, the regime, the Islamic Revolution itself. So all of these things they all boil down to protecting the regime. And this is what we're going to see in the next couple of hours. This is actually Iran's 1979 moment again. If they survive this, if the regime can wither away these series of airstrikes that have been going on for almost 24 hours now, the regime would continue for a few more years. If they
To recall
cannot,
for our viewers, Sandeep, since you're saying that this is Iran's 1979 moment, in 1979, what really happened in terms of did Iran react the way they did in attacking and targeting US assets in the entire Middle East? You have a situation right now where the US CIA facility in Dubai has been targeted. Similar attacks and targeting has been happening in Bahrain, in Jordan, in other parts as well. And it's not just the US military facilities or assets, it's also of the hotels, the luxurious hotels that are being attacked.
well, interesting question, Maria, and you know the answer to that is no. Now, Iran in 1979, when the Shah fled, it was a power vacuum. Ayatollah Khomeini returned. He set up an Islamic rule which began in April of 1979, and Iran went through an intense period of change. There was a lot of, they were very inward looking, but let's not forget that they had an extremely powerful military. They had the most powerful military in West Asia, as equal to, if not most capable than the Israeli military. Now, the Shah of Iran for more than 3 decades had been building up this military with US assistance. Now, there is a story there that the F-14 fighter jet, the fighter jet that Tom Cruise flew in Top Gun, the first part, was actually funded by the Shah of Iran. And that's the kind of power that he had. When he exited, when he fled Iran, there was complete disarray. They were met with Western sanctions. The regime had to establish itself. The Ayatollah Khomeini's regime had to establish itself. Iraq seized that opportunity. Under Saddam Hussein, they invaded. So the Iran-Iraq war went on for almost a decade from there, from 1980 to about 1988. So almost 8 years of constant fighting between Iran and Iraq. They did not have the time to focus on the greater Middle East. They did, of course, threaten to shut the Straits of Hormuz. That is what they have done. Which is possibly the last card that we are talking about that Iran has to play, which is to stop the Straits of Hormuz. There are reports that are coming out that they may have already done that. They have sent out instructions to shut, that no ships can pass through the Straits of Hormuz. But the point of attacking US bases, that is a capability that has been set up over the last 2 or 3 decades. Now, this happens because the IRGC became so powerful. It set up this axis of resistance, and this happened, of course, under the reign of Ayatollah Khamenei, late 1980s, post the Iran-Iraq war, when he set up the IRGC into what it is today. It's the most powerful military force in the region. It is more powerful than the Iranian military, which is the Artesh, which doesn't have the kind of capabilities that the IRGC has. The bases that we are talking about, the dozen or so US bases, these are all under Central Command, CENTCOM. I call it the Trump CENTCOM empire, which is the largest network of air and sea bases owned by any country in any part of the world. They are all across West Asia, from as far as Jordan, Kuwait, Iraq, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE. They're all over the place. And over the last few years, Iran worked out the strategy. They knew that the US and Israel were coming for them. The strategy was, we saw the first indications of that when Major General Soleimani was killed about 6 years back under the first Trump presidency. Now, Qasem Soleimani is one of the most key figures in the IRGC. He was part of the Iranian Revolution in 1979. He was authorized by Ayatollah Khomeini to set up this axis of resistance. The Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq, all of this was the work of this one man, Major General Qasem Soleimani. And it is believed that under his command, they built up the capability to target US bases like Al Udeid, Tehran, all of these places in the event of an attack on Iran. Iran has said that in the past. We've seen it after Qasem Soleimani's assassination in 2020 in Iraq by the first Trump administration. Iran retaliated against the US bases in the region, but there was a difference there. They called them, they warned them, they said that, look, we are going to be striking at your bases. They wanted to avoid casualties. At the same time, they wanted to prove a point. Now, we saw that again last year to a limited impact where they targeted a few of these bases.
But
During the 12-day
Sandeep,
war, during the US attacks on
Sandeep,
Iraq.
since you are saying that this is 1979 moment for Iran, I want to talk about the 7 IRGC generals who have been killed, including Ali Shamkhani. Then if the second rung has been impacted besides the top leader himself, then is Iran prepared for this?
Well, Maria, they have prepared, we are being told, up to 4 levels down.
Okay.
So if the generals are knocked out, the brigadiers will take over. If the brigadiers are knocked out, the colonels will take over. If the colonels are knocked out, the majors will take over. That's the kind of hierarchy that they've built. That's the redundancy that they've built into this kind of thing. They've figured that they have no other way of handling this wave of decapitation strikes. It's very interesting. The kind of attacks that we are seeing are possibly the largest decapitation strikes ever launched post the Second World War. Now, in the Second World War, of course, you had leaders being taken out. The most famous example of a decapitation strike that I can think of in the Second World War was Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, who was killed by the United States. He's the architect of Pearl Harbor. They knew where he was flying in 1943, and they sent a long-range fighter mission to track him and kill him in one of the islands in Southeast Asia. Now, think of 100 times that. That is what you're seeing in the 21st century with the use of AI, with the use of air power, all of these things, C4ISR, satellites, this entire surveillance grid the United States and Israel have set up. I mean, these are the most capable frontline powers in the world today. You're seeing the kind of technology that people could not even believe. If the United States has the capability to fly into a heavily guarded country like Venezuela, extract its leader and take him back to the United States, you're seeing those kind of capabilities here at play. The combination of the US and Israel coming in and carrying out all of these decapitation strikes, Iran really has no way of handling this kind of offensive. And my sense is that they've prepared for this. The IRGC is a very large force. It's a very competent and a very capable force. It is more powerful than the Iranian military. It has very deep roots into the ground. There are 3 structures. And, when you said this is Iran's 1979 moment, there's a big difference. In 1979, you had just one military. You had the Iranian military.
Yes.
When the military turned against the Shah knew, when they refused to fire at civilian protesters, the Shah knew the game was up. In 2026, there are 3 parallel militaries inside Iran. You have the Artesh, which are the Iranian armed forces, the traditional conventional armed forces as we know it. You have the IRGC in the center, which is the most powerful military inside Iran today, which reports directly to the supreme leader. And then you have the paramilitary forces, the Basij, which are believed to be almost 1 million. These are volunteers. These were the volunteers that were set up during the Iran-Iraq war. Literally hundreds of thousands of them, child soldiers, all of that. They used everything to fight that war against Iraq, which they knew was a war of survival, basically. It was the rest of the Gulf propping Iraq and Saddam Hussein into invading Iran because they were afraid of the impact of the Iranian revolution coming into the Shia populations of their countries.